Boom, 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 boom. What's up? My name's... Oh, gotta restart. What's up? My name's Steven Peterson. I play for Utah Bro Army on their semi-pro squad, and I'm sick, so please forgive the voice. But I did review the Mid-Atlantic Major layout on stream last week, just before I was supposed to go to scrimmage Seattle Uprising. But as you can imagine, I didn't go because I'm quite sick. I'm just getting over that now. And because I didn't get that video posted, we already have 1 weekend's worth of practice on this field. So rather than posting clips from the stream where I review the layout before that weekend, I'm actually going to give you kind of an updated take on things that I noticed from the footage that we recorded against Seattle Uprising, and hopefully that'll help you guys. Let's get started. All right, so first thing I think we can get out of the way pretty quickly, as it was relatively dialed in within the first day of at least our practice, and I'm sure for a lot of you who are practicing, this is true as well, that the off-the-break shooting, especially from the home, is quite obvious. You really have just shots heads up from this position, which you'll likely kill the number 2 quite easily, the second guy going on either the snake or the Dorito side, because those gaps are large enough. You can drop shots over the tops of these center bricks or wedges and possibly kill people running tall, but generally speaking, this is pretty much what you have from the home, which is also true from the other side of the field. So again, you have this up the center shot, a little bit less strong than on the Dorito side. That gap's a little bit smaller, but you do have a lot of surface area to work with as people start running to their primary bunkers off the break. From the home position, as you can see if we zoom up a little bit here, you do have a couple shots into this God bunker. Again, if they're running and gunning to this bunker, absolutely you can kill them. That's mostly going to be true for this cake here on the snake side of the field. And you do have some shots as well for people running and gunning. Oh, excuse me. This is the snake corner. This is the God. Just to confirm what we're talking about here. This God bunker versus the snake corner bunker. So in any case, those shots do exist. And you are able to get pick up those players again if they're not running low enough. That was happening to our player Sage towards the second day of our scrimmage. Whereas the first day, Sage was actually able to make it pretty much to the 50 snake or the snake 2 off the break most points. So for example, some of the routes that he was running off the break, which I'm happy to share with you because, as you know, we're not playing in this tournament because of how expensive it is. But a lot of the routes that he was running and getting away with, which is not going to be true at the tournament, especially on like Saturday and Sunday. But that's not true if you keep doing it, right? You can change up your route and hopefully find some success doing it that way. But he was able to find some success taking this route into the 50 snake pretty easily on the second day. Seattle Uprising and a lot of our scrimmages wasn't actually matching that. The difficulty we were having is finding those kills once you get into this bunker, which we corrected. So we definitely found what to do in that scenario, which we'll talk about when we speak to the snake specifically. I just want to talk about these running routes. The other option that's somewhat safe, but again, difficult to make because you're standing really tall. Once you cross this gap right here, if you're standing really tall, rather, you'll definitely get picked up from anybody shooting from the home your way. So you got to get low, but taking that route into the God is relatively safe. And then the one thing to also note is that as soon as you get to the God, if you made it alive, you should be able to get up to the snake 1 immediately after. And it just kind of depends on, again, how low you're going. We can actually look at that here. So again, if I'm in the God and I go low enough, you can actually get up to this first snake with relative ease. Again, you do have to be careful about players in either this bunker, either this position here or this position here, but that would mostly be a drop shot on your pack, again, depending on how high you're running. So the other thing that Sage shared with me on the snake side specifically, when we're talking about, you know, the first 5 to 10 seconds of the point, is there's really no bunkers that can stop the snake 1 to the snake 2 move, with the exception of this bunker right here, which we call the Seattle. So some of you might be saying, well, what the heck? Oh, excuse me, that's actually not the right route. The route that he was taking was to go this direction. And some of you might be saying, well, how's that possible? Like, the tower right here has the ability to kill this guy. Actually, if you look from the tower's perspective, what actually stops you from shooting that person, this is about, you know, guns up isn't totally accurate in their height. So I know that some of you might be looking in the comments and saying, well, hey, you're not actually standing as tall as you should be. But again, and this does depend on how tall you are, but for most people, this is probably the view that you'll have. And so what you see is that people who get low enough, you can't really drop a shot in on them, and they'll use this cake right here to block your shot and your view. So they found that even against Seattle Uprising, they were having a hard time stopping Sage getting into the Snake 50 unless they decided to send somebody up to the Seattle within the first few seconds of the point, or maybe off the break rather. So you have the ability to stop that inside route if you do that. But otherwise nobody can see you from what we can tell, right? Some of you guys in the comments, if you did find that shot, let me know where it exists. Also consider that, you know, your skill and division do play a factor in this, but otherwise you should be clear to make that route. So obviously everything else beyond that is kind of specific to the team you're playing against and how well their shots are dialed in. But again, for the most part, some of the routes that were relatively safe were things like this, or if you take the outside, things like this, getting in there. It wasn't, from my understanding, very safe to do this, though you can do that. The reason it's not safe is this gap right here. Just the trajectory difference between going up here, using this bunker to blind, versus coming out even over here, which this little gap exposes you a decent amount to this guy, and this guy was enough of a difference that it made it a little bit less safe. So again, not a huge difference. Some of you guys might be saying like, how is that gap that much of a difference? But in cases where you're fighting people who are quite accurate, that is enough of a difference to affect that. So as far as what the number 2 does on the Snake side, I guess we're just talking about the Snake. Here we are. So the number 2 on the Snake side, there's a lot of options for them. It did seem to be that if you're struggling to survive, going to this cake off the break and just shooting heads up was working. If you're struggling to stop their Dorito side, shooting cross seemed to work pretty well. The difficulty here is going to be that almost every point players were getting into the Dorito one without any issues. So I'm not sure. I'm sure as the tournament develops, that cross shot is going to get more and more accurate, especially in the Pro Division. So maybe that's something to practice, but obviously the big issue here is this tower that's blocking your vision as you're making that run outward. So we can actually take a look at that right now. So if we start from the start box and we run cross, your opportunity to kill that guy is either right here if you're shooting this, there we go. If you're shooting this zone right here, or you can pump some paint right there and possibly kill him. It is a shot, it is possible, but just know that if you're needing to stop their Dorito push, that's a really viable option off the break. And the same is true as far as cross shots are concerned. The same is true for the Dorito side, that if you're needing to get some kind of cheeky kill on the Snake side, or maybe slow the push there, shooting cross from the Dorito side actually provides even more visibility. I'll kind of create a cone here for a second. So assuming that you don't even shoot, well, actually, if we consider the fact that you can shoot over the center bunker pretty easily, if we use that can up the center of the field, this whole view is pretty accessible. So just be aware of that. So again, back to the number 2 on the Snake side. Going to the cake was really safe for the most part. And then going to the corner was something that people did off the break, just like any other layout. So kind of play around with it. It's really just a matter of how good their off the break shooting is, and if you need to change up where you're getting into. So don't get stuck in just going to, don't get stuck in making the same safe plays where, for example, you just kind of break out to your 2 primaries every time. Play around with it. One thing that the Snake side provides for, in my opinion, better than the Dorito side, though we'll see if that changes, is that you can actually pretty easily filter 3 bodies up the Snake side, more so than you can the Dorito side. But that's just because, for example, if you send your number 2 guy on the Snake side over to the corner, your number 1 guy gets over to the God or somewhere in these 2 bunkers, and then your number 3 filters behind and gets up to this tower right here, what you end up having is a really strong, you have a really strong setup in this kind of triangle formation right here to be able to not only aggress the Snake side, which does appear to be the side that opens up or has the potential to open up games really quickly compared to the Dorito side, but that you also then do some damage control on the Dorito side by allowing your number 3 to watch cross and kind of up the center plays. for anybody who tries to punish your snake guy. So that's a possibility. Again, then you have your corner guy looking heads up, helping your snake guy move up the field to then get those kills. I did see that a decent amount from both our squad as well as Seattle Uprising. I suppose you could do the very same thing on the Dorito side. You could send somebody the Dorito 1, send somebody to the cake, and then maybe your number 3 filters up to the tower, and then up to, you know, these center bunkers here. That was something I did see a lot as well. The question there will just be how effective it is to stop the snake side from the center. This shot right here is really strong. You will surprise a lot of people in the snake 1 if you make this move. And it's mostly because a lot of the snake guys in this situation are looking heads up to move to this second bunker here. So if you get there as the center guy in the first 5 to 10 seconds of the point, undetected, you do have a pretty good shot at killing their front snake player making that move. So I guess onto the center. There wasn't as many plays that I saw of people going up the center in the first 5 to 10 seconds of the point, or rather, at least if they were delaying up the center. But I actually think that this is a field where we'll see a lot more play development as the tournament goes on, and people will start to get more and more comfortable with what is, you know, relatively safe to do. Because at first glance, the center of the field is really not, it's very open. You know, a lot of people, when they look at the center, they think, holy cow, there's just no coverage here. And when you get to the center, for example, like this can, you're just getting pinched out by a lot of bunkers that are pretty easy to get to for the most part. You know, that snake 1's really easy to get to. You might get pressured from the tower over top, possibly. You'll get pressured by the home guy, and maybe if they're in the Dorito 3, you're dead, right? Dorito 2, maybe if they're wrapping, not so much. But in either case, it looks very open. But the trick here is just to make sure that you find where the gaps are in their paint, and then take that as soon as possible. Or to do it from, you know, off the break when you know, all right, they've been pressuring us on the snake side. They've got 2 guns dedicated to that side every point, including their home guy. What sort of opportunities does that free up for me? Because if you know that, for example, if you know that their snake corner runner, let's say they're sending a guy snake corner, they're sending a guy home, and maybe they're sending a guy to this cake here. The cake guy's shooting cross, the snake runner is shooting heads up, and then they've got their home guy looking for something like this, because they know that the Dorito play is really just kind of a safe leapfrog, then that really opens up a lot of opportunities for you to then abuse that and go up to the Dorito side and punish. Or you can even, if you want, take more of the center approach right here and then come into this 50 wedge up in the snake side of the field. So lots of opportunity. It's really just a matter of you got to know where their home guy's shooting. I think that's really important, and you got to key up on if they're shooting a lot of off the break cross shots, right? Because one thing that was killing a lot of people going up to these towers, for example, these towers right here ended up being utilized a lot in the second half of the first day, and a lot of the first half of the second day. What was stopping us from surviving those moves was a lot of this cross shooting that was happening. So you got to be careful about that when you're making those moves, but just know that that's available to you as well. All right, let's talk now about the Dorito side and kind of some of the things that I saw, again, from the footage that we recorded, which you can see some of that sideline footage at twitch.tv/EzekinHD. Again, I stream every Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, so be sure to see the schedule down in the description. But what you notice is that the Dorito is pretty one-dimensional in terms of your job and functionality. And it's really important that you survive in the Doritos. A lot of times we would lose points unnecessarily because our front Dorito player was just getting picked out of his bunker in a heads-up gun battle. But it's so important. I mean, I would say more so than a lot of other fields. It's so important that your front Dorito player just survives in this bunker. It's okay if he plays slower than he probably should to start, and then ramp up the speed over the course of the tournament, but survive. That's so important in this field. And it's largely because even if they, for example, get up to the Dorito 3, the damage that they're going to do is far less if you are alive even in the Dorito 1, because then you are able to counter push and counter punch and then hold this tape eventually once you know, again, if you survive that move, than it is for them to kill you in this Dorito, because what ends up happening is they just continue to play the wide game, and all they're doing is pressuring the guy behind you the entire way until they get to a certain point where they can just start killing all the snake players. But this field is weird because even if you get up to this 50, well, we'll call it the 50 Dorito. Even if you get up to this 50 Dorito, there's not a lot of kills for you over on the snake side of the field. They do exist, but there's a lot of shots that are blinding it, or a lot of bunkers rather that are blinding that shot. So if we take a look here real quick, you'll kind of see what I mean. So, I mean, again, if you stand tall, there's some shots there, but like all you're killing in this position, if you stand up, is you're killing the tower. You'll probably kill, you know, the cake guy. Well, you will kill the cake guy actually, if you stand right here. So, but you can't see the corner unless he's standing up over the top. You can't see the god. You can't see anybody in the snake 1 or 2, and you can't see anybody in the snake 50. So what's most important again is to just survive, because so long as you have a guy in the Doritos, it prevents him from wrapping like this, which then starts opening up a lot more threat to you guys. So then he can start pressuring this person, he can start pressuring this guy. He prevents anybody from filling out to the snake side from the home, or even from the home over to the Dorito side, which would be suicide. But again, it's so hard. I mean, I can't over stress enough. Don't die in the Doritos. It's just really hard. It's not difficult to fill out to it. It's like any other layout, where you just have to own the guy in front of you and or control the widest guy and then own the guy that's stopping you after that. But it's just really, bad things start to happen when you lose that guy. That's true for the snake side. I mean, again, a 4v5 situation, it's always not good, but there are certain layouts and scenarios in which you can control that damage just given the layout, and this is one where it's really hard to control the damage as soon as you lose that Dorito guy. One thing to be aware of as well is that if they get a Dorito guy up the field pretty early on, you got to watch for their number 2 guy to follow up with a center push and a center punch. So long as their Dorito 1 guy is staying alive, their number 2 guy is going to probably make this move a lot. And that's because it's not really good, from what I could tell. It doesn't really work to have your front Dorito player in this, you know, Dorito 3 or 4 bunker and have your number 2 falling behind him in the Doritos. That's why it's really important for this guy to survive. Because let's say, for example, this guy dies, but you are here. Well, you certainly can stop. If they're in the Dorito 1 or 2, you can certainly stop that move. And even if they're in the Dorito 3, you can. But you're no longer the widest person on the field, and it just puts a lot more pressure on you if you're the only guy who's in the center-ish of the field stopping the Dorito side, because then you're really susceptible to up the center rundowns, and that will happen a lot. So again, your front Dorito guys, you guys just need to stay alive this tournament. I think it's really important that you fight your way into the Dorito 3 as soon as you possibly can. So make sure that you're, you know, snap shooting's super sharp going into the second weekend. If you have to, stay after, shoot at targets, do whatever you need to. So make sure your gunfighting is really strong. And then make sure your explosivity is really strong going into this tournament. But beyond that, you should just prioritize, more so than any other time in your life, you should prioritize staying alive. And then from there, you'll find a lot of success. So beyond that, the Dorito side, like I said, is pretty straightforward from what it seemed, at least coming out of this first weekend. I'll be really curious to see how the second weekend's worth of practices go. As some of you know, Christian Martinez, a former teammate of mine from Utah Bro Army, now plays for Los Angeles Ironmen. Haven't had a chance to hear how his scrimmage went against X Factor, but hopefully I'll have at least some of that information available to you guys in the next coming streams, either Saturday, Tuesday, or Thursday leading up to the Mid-Atlantic Major, and I'll be sure to share that with you guys. But I'll be curious to see how teams perform the second weekend, because obviously, as we know, the first weekend, people are just kind of learning the layout, figuring out what works, what doesn't. So I'll be really curious to see how much more of a struggle pushing the snake side will be when teams start getting their shots dialed in and start finding those routes that are either difficult to survive or the only ways that you can really get up the field safely. So thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know what you learned from this from this layout and your first weekend practicing it. I'd love to know down in the comments and just share that knowledge with other people who watch this video. So again, if you like the video, please like it. I mean, that's as simple as that. If you didn't like it, dislike it. I don't mind. But if you want to get more content like this, again, my layout reviews or barrel cam footage against pro teams, my How to Think Like a Pro series, be sure to subscribe to the channel so you can stay notified as soon as those videos drop. And I'll see you next time. Peace.